Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. I actually had a project to do at home, and so that's going to be today's video, and I'm going to make over this window here. My husband built the shelf on the top when we first moved here, but now he's added a shelf to the center, and I'm going to make this a window for my plants because this gets the morning sun. I'm sorry that the lighting is not the best because I'm filming this in the evening, but I thought this would be a good place for my plants. I have the one plant on the top that I've already had there for a long time, and it's just doing really well. So I wanted to move the other ones there, or most of my other ones, and then I think they'll do a lot better there. So these are, I have a couple of these pots. One I've already painted in the color Buttercream, and had used that another place in the house, but I'm going to use them both in this window. And so I'm just doing a very light coat of the color Sea Glass. This is a Dixie Belle color. I'm not worried about full coverage here because once I'm done with this and it's dry to the touch, then I'm going to go over this with some brown glaze. And the reason I'm not going to let it dry very long is because I want it to pull a little bit of this off still. So it will dull this color some and also pull a little bit of that paint off, and that's kind of the look that I'm going for. And I'm going to do the same thing. The other one is just painted Buttercream, but I haven't gone over it with the glaze, and I'm going to go over it with the glaze also. And I purchased a couple of new plants for this window, and this is one of them. And this pot, the shape of it is fine, but I want this to look older. So I'm going to do that same finish on this. Now I won't have all the detail with this one, but I still think the finish will turn out good. So I just do just one coat, almost a dry brush coat on. And then I'm going to go over this also with the brown glaze. I just don't like the look of the new pots at all for my decor. So I just thought that would give this a little bit more of an aged look. So I went over all three of these with this brown glaze. And then that will act as my sealer coat also, so I won't have to put a clear finish over this. And here, as you can see, I'm not being careful at all. I'm just kind of slapping a little bit on there and wiping it off well. I've had these two old pots for a long time and never had painted them until this one got painted last year, and then obviously the Sea Glass on the other one in this video. But I always knew that I loved them, but really hadn't figured out how to use them. And now I've decided that I'm going to put these in, make a hanging basket out of these. And I've never tried my hand at making those little hanging, I guess they're called macrame. I'm going to do one that's so simple I don't know that you could call it macrame. But anyway, I'm going to make my own hangers for this window, and I'll do one of them on the video so that you can see how I did it. I am not a professional whatsoever. This is the first one I've ever tried. So, but I was happy with how it turned out, and I made 3 of these because I'm going to put all 3 of these pots that I just did will be in hangers. Now the hangers that I made only took about 5 minutes each. So I was really happy with how easy they were. It's a little bit to contend with all the string, but I would definitely make them again because I think it was well worth the effort. Now you can use macrame string here. I'm just using regular jute twine, and I used some that was just a little bit thicker than I generally use. And I started with 6 strands. Now, I didn't measure these, but if I had to guess, I would say maybe about 120 inches each. But what I did is I had a little eye hook in the top. Now, I know this is not the most ideal way to start these. You would put a ring on the top, but I just kind of worked with what I had. But anyway, what I did was I fold these in half. I put them through the loop at the top, and then I pull them until they're folded in half, if that makes sense. And then I end up with 12 strands because the 6 strands are folded in half. And then I take 4 sections of 4 and braided them down so far. Now this little trick here is what I watched a YouTuber do, and she started with that loop. So the loop is at the bottom and the string is at the top, if that makes sense. And then you wrap it around about 5 or 6 times and put that through the loop in the bottom, and then pull the string on the top really tight. And that's supposed to hold that in place. And then you just trim both of those off. Now I'll be doing that again. There'll be one other place on this that I'll have to do that. So hopefully I'll be able to make that a little clearer. So now that I've got it braided at the top, I just braided it just enough below that board that you could see the braid. And now I'm going down about 6 inches or so and taking 2 strands at a time and tying them in a knot. Now you want to make sure that your knots are even, that they line up as close as possible in length. And when you pull your strands, try to pull 2 that are close together because you don't want to have kind of a knot of them in the center, if that makes sense. They're going to be side by side all the way around, the best that you can. Obviously that's not going to be perfect, but just do the best that you can. And then, so you get all these, so you'll have 6 of them tied in knots, and the knots lined up together. It's very obvious that I've never did this before because I don't even know how to explain what I'm doing. But you just tie these knots as close in length as you can again. And then you're going to take 2 of them that you've knotted together that are side by side, and then you're going to pull the 2 inside strings together and do the same thing. Go down about 6 or so inches and do another knot. And then the outer string of each of these is going to be joined to the inner string of the next string, if that makes sense. So you're doing 2 together here, but you're going to connect them to the one to the side, if that makes sense. So I just do this all the way around. So this is going to be 6 more knots, and this is going to make, as you can see, it really is very simple to make. It's just keeping these little strings straight, or not straight, but in order, so that you don't tie the wrong ones together. That's the only thing that I thought was somewhat difficult. But as you can see, I haven't sped this up, so it really didn't take me long at all. And I'm sure that all of you all can do this if you've not tried it, and I'm sure many of you have probably done real macrame. So now I'm going to go down about 6 or so more inches and do that same knot that I did at the top. So I'll start with that loop, and the loop will be on the bottom, the string on the top, and then the other string that would be on the top is what you're wrapping around and around, and then you'll pull it through the loop on the bottom and pull the string tight on the top, and that will secure that. And then you just cut both of those off. Now at this point, this is finished. A lot of people will go back, and I'm probably at some point will do that, and unravel all those strands on the bottom. You cut it off to the length you want, so obviously I don't want it dragging on my shelf, so I'm going to cut it just above that. And again, but put your plan in it first before you trim it, because then you'll know how high it's going to hang. But it's a little bit to contend with to try to figure out how to get your pot in there. But you just start in one of the holes on the very top layer and just kind of work that in and put your pot in. If you have a larger pot like this, then you need to start, give yourself plenty of room at the top before you do your first knots, if that makes sense. So now I've just got to work all this plant material between these, between the strings so that it doesn't kind of squish it up. And then I just kind of even it out and make sure that it's standing upright. And I thought this was so easy to do. And now I'm just trimming that off. And again, other people will, I've seen, unravel it. And I started here, but it's going to take a while, so I didn't bother to do it. So that was this one was the third one that I did. And I already had the other two done. But this is my very first time making these. And again, I think they worked out just fine. And you could do more detailed designs on it, but I was fine with just this simple plant hanger. So that's going to be the base for this. And so I just kind of evened them out, put one in the center, and then divided the space on each end and hung one. So I want this teapot to look like stoneware. And I love the design on it, but there's a very bad crack in the spout that I'm going to have to use some of my air dry clay and fix that with. So I just do that, and then I'm going to make this look like my other stoneware. And I want to make this one look very aged. So again, I just take my air dry clay. I've cleaned it first with alcohol to make sure that everything sticks. And then I take a little bit of wood glue, actually of my Tite Bond, and rub it over the crack so that when I put that clay on, it makes sure to stick well. And it was by no means perfect, but I got it pretty smooth, and you couldn't tell that there was the crack there to begin with. And then I went over the teapot with some of my slick stick to help my paint stick, and that's a Dixie Belle product, and it'll help your paint stick well to glass or any slick surfaces. And then I gave it 2 coats of the color Buttercream. I didn't want this to be white, just stark white, so I decided to use Buttercream here, especially since I'm going to try to make this one look somewhat aged. So 2 coats of the color Buttercream, and then I took some of my antiquing ink, which is not permanent at all, and just kind of dabbed it around the bottom and other places on it randomly to make it look more aged. And I'm not going to worry that it's not permanent because I'm going to be spraying this with a clear finish. And so I couldn't brush a clear finish on because then it would cause that ink to smear. But I just kind of missed that first coat and let it dry well, and then I'm able to give this a good coat. And I actually want to give this a glossy finish so that it looks more realistic. It'll look more like the ironstone. So here I am just taking a sponge and just kind of adding some of this ink to make it look aged. And I'm trying to concentrate a lot more on the bottom because that's how a lot of times the ironstone will age. And it almost ages like maybe like in specks, if that makes sense. So that's why I chose this porous sponge to just kind of sponge this on. And so I'm not rubbing it, I'm just kind of dabbing. And again, once I get enough of the antiquing ink on it, then I'm going to just take this outside and give it a couple of good coats of a gloss finish. Now you could use a semi-gloss, but again, I felt like the shinier that I got it, the more realistic it would look. And I was real happy with it. Now if you inspected it very closely, you could tell, but just in looking at it, you wouldn't know that it wasn't actual ironstone. Now I want to take a little board that I put a bird mold on and just use it kind of as a shelf sitter. And because I'm going to have some of my plant marker knives in with this vignette, I just thought it would be cool to make a hanger or a plate stand out of this fork. So I just kind of work the two outer ones forward and the two center ones backward. And when I pull those center ones backwards, I kind of try to pull them apart somewhat. This was not the easiest to do, so if you're brave, try it. If not, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, you can tell that it's made from a fork, and I do like that, but it's not so noticeable. It's not noticeable enough that it's really worth a lot of the effort. Now, I had a viewer tell me when I was using a spoon as a handle on a pot, and it was having a hard time bending it. She suggested getting some of the Dollar Tree flatware and using that because it's very cheap, so it bends easily. And I know that Walmart also has some that is cheap enough that it bends easily. So you could use either of those. This happens to be an old fork, so it was a lot more work. And again, this one's not perfect, but this is essentially what it's going to look like. And then you'll just put your little shelf sitter on there. I decided against using this one and decided on another one. But it does make a neat little plate stand if it's worth the work to you. So I've had this little watering can for years. I say can, but it's actually plastic. I tried to find one this small in metal that I could make over and couldn't find one, and a wider one won't fit on the shelf that I want to keep it on. So, and I don't want to leave this one out because it's just not real attractive. So I put a coat of slick stick on this, and then I painted it in the color Burlap, and I put 2 coats of the color Burlap on it. Now this, because it's plastic, is definitely an experiment to see if it's even going to hold or it's even going to stay on there rather. But I figured if I put the slick stick on, it would have the best chance of it. And if it doesn't last, it's just mine, and I can either repaint it or replace it. So again, I put a good coat of the slick stick and let that dry well, and then 2 coats of the color Burlap. And then I took this outside and gave it a good clear coat because I'm going to be adding a transfer to it. And I didn't want the transfer to pull off any of the paint. Plus, it's going to have a couple of clear coats to make sure that this stays anyway. I want to give this every chance of staying. So this is one of the flowers from the Dixie Belle transfer set called Magnolia Garden. And I was going to add the leaves also, but the leaves were just too much. I couldn't figure out how to get them placed. So I just put this Magnolia on here. And then I did some script stamping on it. And then finished this off with a clear coat. And I really am happy with how it turned out. Again, it's an experiment to see if it lasts. And again, I'm sorry about the lighting on the reveal pictures, but there it is finished. And now I decided to take a couple of ball jars and make some containers to put some of my indoor plant fertilizer in. So I took 2 of these jars and I cut that 2x4 to fit the length of the jars when they were sitting on top of it, if that makes sense. And now the only thing I'm doing to make these little jars over is painting the old lids. So I'm going to paint the lids and the little riser that I'm making for these in the color Buttercream. So I'll give this 2 coats of the color Buttercream, and then let that dry well. And then I'm going to add some of my Magnolia Garden transfers to this. I just picked some little small pieces that would transfer to the top of these lids. But while I had the paint out, I'm going to go ahead and make my riser for these. And I took some of these little barrel feet that I bought a long time ago, and I'm still working on them. I still have plenty. So I'm just gluing 4 of the small ones on this 2x4. And it's already been stained, but I'm going to be painting over that stain. I like that it has it because I'll have something to distress down to, because I will be distressing this. So I just glued these on with Titebond, and then I used that Buttercream and put 2 coats of the color Buttercream on both the top and the bottom of the riser. So the whole thing will be, I thought about leaving the feet dark and just decided I wanted the whole thing to be white or to be Buttercream. And I did take my orbital sander and sand all the sharp edges of this and kind of round it off somewhat, just to make it look more like it should be a riser and not a 2x4. And I'm not only going to be transferring on the lids of these, but I'm also going to add some of that same transfer set, just little sprigs of it, to the top of this riser to make it go together. So I'm taking some of the very small pieces, and I'm using everything from this little twig here. This will be enough to do the lids and the top of the riser. I like to make sure and get a lot out of my transfers, and when I have these small pieces like this, I like to really cut these apart. And so I'm just going to do a flower on one, and then just some little sprigs of greenery on the other one, and then what's left over will go on the top of the riser. And I forgot to mention that these lids were sealed ahead of time with a clear sealer to keep it from pulling the paint away. Now, I didn't seal it first. I didn't seal the riser first because I wanted to distress first. And so I just decided, this is little scraps of this transfer. So I just decided to go ahead and try and see if I could make it work without the sealer, and it worked just fine. So then I was able to do my distressing and then clear coat it. And I thought I made that one little image work, but I forgot I added this little twig to this one. It's still from the same set, but it wasn't that same sprig. And now I'm just kind of deciding on the placement to see how I can make this work. And I thought that was just enough to tie these pieces together. And I made sure and put some floral there on the front, just so you could see it from the front also. But then that's all that I added to this. And I think this little set turned out cute, and it'll be a good way to store my Osmocote and my other my little plant spikes and things like that. So again, I just give this some pretty heavy distressing and finish it off with a clear finish, and then this was finished. And again, the lighting on the reveal is not going to be good. It was the evening sunlight, so, but there is my little set. So now I'm going to just kind of show you how I put it together. I've already hung my flower or my plants here. And I'm just kind of trying to bring the look from the top down to the bottom, but be able to put on my plants. So I had a little bit more ironstone that I could add down here to the bottom. I used both real and fake ironstone. I just love the look of it, and I don't care if it's real or not. Obviously, if it's real, that's a plus. But but I just kind of try to work that look into this. Now, I forgot to show those little items. Those were just little antique miniature bread pans, and I put some feet on those, and I put a flower in one of them, and then the other one I just put 2 little milk bottles in it, because I'll use those milk bottles to use to start plants in. So I have a spider plant that I need to do some starters on, so I'll put those in one, and then I have another plant that I need starters on. So it's always nice to have those little bottles with water in them where you can just put your little plant in there and start it. So that was kind of my idea for that one. But I put a plant in that fake ironstone that I painted, and I'm just kind of using some of my ironstone pieces to put some of my plants in, and then just adding some that don't have it. I don't want to overcrowd this, but I definitely want to have enough on here, so I just try to fill it in somewhat but not make it too crowded. But I'm really happy with how this little window turned out. And then I'll just take that little set that I made for my fertilizer and put that on that bottom shelf. It's hidden by my piano bench at my table, so you're not going to see that bottom ledge anyway, except that one little spot to the right. And that's where I'll put my watering can and my fertilizer. And I'm sorry about my camera work here. I'm not used to doing this type of video, and it's hard to get that camera where you can see. But there are my little jars that I made for the riser. And then I'll put my little watering can there, and it will all be finished. I have some incredible hang tags that came in the mail. I actually got tags from 4 different people, and some made more than one each. So I'm excited to get to show those hang tags. Again, that lighting is terrible. You can't even see that transfer, but trust me that it did turn out really neat. And now I'm going to show you guys the hang tags that I received in the mail today. And this one is just absolutely gorgeous. This one is from Teresa Sanders in Arizona, and if this looks like a board, it's because it is. She did it with a flooring sample, and I love all this art on here. She did some major decoupaging layering, and I think it is just gorgeous. And this shiny finish, I'm not sure what she used, but I absolutely love the look of this. And the same kind of decoupaging on the back. This is even a crackle decoupage, which I've been trying to figure out how to do. My sister has been trying to figure out even longer, and she would absolutely love to know how you did this. But if you want to send me a note and let me know how you did this, I would greatly appreciate it. But this is just absolutely gorgeous. And she was worried about it being too heavy to put on my wall. I'm going to manage to put it on there because it is just gorgeous. Now, these next two are from Karen from Michigan. And I just love how she, especially this one. So this is obviously a lady in a dress, but she used the vintage ribbon and lace and made that dress 3D. And I thought that was just an incredible idea. And I love the vintage button in the corner. I think it just turned out so pretty. And I never would have thought to do this. I love that the lady is taller than the hang tag. That gives it some more dimension. And I just think this was so sweet. And the back is pretty as well. And then the other one she did, this one was real sweet. It has the chicken there, picture on the bottom, the recipe, and then on the back is this cute little girl in a chef's hat holding a cake. And I just think that is such a sweet little picture to go with that, the food on the back. I thought that just turned out so sweet. So these next hang tags, this lady made 3, and they're from Sheila from Kentucky. And she said she just started making hang tags, and you sure can't tell because these are so sweet. I love the little chicken. This is more of a farmhouse style one with the old buttons, and I love that burlap in the back, and it kind of mimics straw. And so I thought that was a real sweet touch. And this one, obviously, I love the vintage look and the Victorian ladies. I love the little fan on the bottom with the doily on top. I think that was such a sweet touch. And this one is just absolutely beautiful. I love the rose pattern on the back. It's perfect. You sure can't tell, Sheila, that you just started making these. And then the last one, this one is probably my favorite of hers. And the reason, I guess, is because I love how she did the antiquing around the edges. Mine doesn't turn out that well. And I think this was just absolutely beautiful. I love that you didn't do any kind of print in the back. You just had that vintage paper and did that antiquing on it. I think that is just beautiful. And that beautiful rose over the script in the top. And then obviously the scripture on the bottom, I just love. I want to keep many of these hang tags for myself, but I'm putting them on the wall until I get it so full that I can't get any more on there. And then some of them may be mine. And last but not least, this is from Laura Jo from Michigan. And I met Laura Jo. She came to my shop one day, and I forgot to ask her if she wanted her full name mentioned. So I'm just going to say Laura Jo for now. But she has my same style. We learned that when she was here. And we've actually become fast friends. We call ourselves long distance friends. But this one is absolutely beautiful. I love the little bird, and I love the little saying on the front of it. And this one is my favorite. And the reason it's my favorite is because it's got this vintage fabric here, but it is my favorite Bible verse. This has been my favorite Bible verse for years and years. I love the little detail on the bottom there. This one, when I retire this wall and do something different, I don't know what I'll do once I have enough hang tags, but I want to do something to showcase your talent, but this one will have to go in my Bible. But I think this one is just absolutely beautiful, and again, so me and so my scripture. And then Laura Jo did one more, and I'm going to show that one. It's just beautiful as well, and it also has scripture on it. And this one I thought was so sweet with the little bird in the cage, and it says fly away, and then in her handwriting down there it says into his arms rather. And I just think that's so beautiful. And then the scripture on the back. These are just absolutely gorgeous, Laura Jo. You guys are absolutely awesome. And I just can't thank you enough for sending these in. When I go to my mailbox and I get some of these, it just makes my day. And I just love to look at them and look at all the things that you guys do to your tags to make them so special. And it gives me ideas. Again, when I can't fit anymore on my wall, I don't know what I'll do. I'll either take those down and start over, or I'll come up with some other way that y'all can easily send me some of your talent. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.